The English word skull is probably derived from the Old Norse skull, while the Latin word cranium comes from the Greek root. The skull is made up of number of fused flat bones and contains many foramina, fossa, processes, and several cavities or sinuses. In zoology, there are openings in the skull called fenestrae. Human neurocranium and the facial skeletons. The human skull is the bony structure that forms the head in the human skeleton. It supports the structure of the face and forms a cavity for the brain. Like the skulls of other vertebrates, it protects the brain from injury. The skull consists of three parts of the different embryological origin: the neurocranium, sutures, and the facial skeleton. तीन चीज़ें हैं the neurocranium, the suture and the facial skeleton. The neurocranium forms the protective cranial cavity that surrounds and houses the brain and the brainstem. The upper areas of the cranial bones form the calvaria. The membranous viscocranium includes the mandible. The sutures are fairly rigid joints between the bones of the neurocranium. The facial skeleton is formed by the bones supporting the face. Bones, except for the mandible, all of the bones of the skull are joined together by the sutures. Sine arthrodile, immovable joints formed by the bony ossification with the sharpy fibers permitting some flexibility. Sometimes there can be extra bone pieces within the suture known as Wormian bones or sutural bones. Most commonly, these are found in the course of the lambdoid suture. The human skull is generally considered to consist of 22 bones, 8 cranial bones, and 14 facial bones. In the neurocranium, these are the occipital bones, 2 temporal bones, 2 parietal bones, and the sphenoid, ethmoid, and frontal bones. The bones of the facial skeleton are the vomer, 2 inferior nasal concha, 2 nasal bones, 2 maxilla, the mandible, 2 palatine bones, 2 zygomatic bones, and the 2 lacrimal bones. Some sources count a paired bone as one or the maxilla as having two bones. Some sources, including the hide bone or the three ossicles of the middle layer, but the overall general consensus of the number of the bones in the human skull is stated 22. Some of these bones of the occipital, parietal, frontal in the neurocranium and the nasal, lacrimal, and the vomer in the facial skeleton are flat bones, cavities, and foramina. Skull also contains sinuses, air-filled cavities known as paranasal sinuses, and the numerous foramina. The sinuses are lined with the respiratory epithelium. Their non-function are the lessening of the weight of the skull, the aiding of the resonance of the voice to the voice, and the warming and the moistening of the air down into the nasal cavities. The foramina are openings in the skull. The largest of these is the foramen magnum that allows the passage of the spinal cord as well as the nerves and the blood vessels. The many processes of the skull including the mastoid process and the zygomatic process. Fenestrae